you have to feel it. Like country music is about honesty, and you've got to be completely honest, I think. Though that's not 100% of what country is today.
Hey, what's up, Houston? How are you, man?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. My name is Adam, and this is about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new song as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. First off, I did read born and raised in Oklahoma. Were you raised there as well? Because I did read something about Alaska as well, so I'm
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. I was born in Oklahoma and grew up in Alaska and Massachusetts. My dad is from Oklahoma. He's a touring musician,
Mm-hmm.
and I met my mom in Massachusetts, but he was a broke musician, so he rejoined the army,
Okay.
and they sent him to Alaska. Eventually, they split up, and my mom brought us back to Massachusetts.
Okay. So how long did you live in Oklahoma then for?
Just a couple years.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and my dad still lives there. I go back all the time. I reconnected with my dad when I joined the army. So I was about 19. I
Okay.
finally met him again, and I connected with that side of the family. And man, it was quite eye-opening, to just trying to figure out who you are as a person growing up, and you're like, oh, this all makes sense now. Okay, my dad is like this, my family's like this. Why was I getting, all of these? I don't know. I feel like they're kind of genetic,
Sure. I mean, because
but
it sounds like there's music on your dad's side of the family, right? I mean, if he was a
oh,
touring musician,
for sure.
uh,
I
and
never.
you also joined the army as well, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, yeah. I was in
Okay.
9 years,
Wow.
and my brother and everybody else. My dad has 11 siblings, and I think at least five of them were in the military. Most of them
Wow.
have passed on, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you were in Oklahoma a short period of time, it sounds like, and then you went to Massachusetts. Were
Well,
there for a
Alaska, then Mass. Yeah,
Oh, Alaska first. Okay, how long did you live in Alaska for?
10 years.
Wow. What was it? I mean, what part of Alaska? I don't know much about it, but I'm
Sure.
just
So
curious.
there's like Anchorage,
Hmm.
Big Lake, Wasilla. I lived in Wasilla, which is a town of size about 3,000 people, and most people
Wow.
know that town for Sarah Palin. I never knew her when I was there. Small town, but I didn't know her.
Yeah, that's crazy to say. Like, I didn't know her, and I'm like, well, yeah, but then if you think of 3,000 people, that's not very many people, like at all. I mean, my high school graduating class was 1,200, so that's like basically my entire high school was living in your whole town. So you
Oh,
probably would have run
funny.
right. I mean, it makes more sense now to have run into her, sure.
Yeah, I had my mind on everything. I was riding motorcycles and horses and you know singing in malls. That was what I was doing. I didn't care about
Okay. Was
that.
where you lived in Alaska, did you have the I maybe it's all of Alaska, I'm just ignorant to this, but like where it stays in light all the time and then dark for most of the time and then it kind of does the like half a year, isn't that correct? Or
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
so it's really more extreme further up north, and Anchorage is kind of the southern part.
Okay.
Well, kind of the southern part, and there's also the where Ketchikan is, where it's closer to Vancouver and stuff. But yeah, so in the summertime, it would be we'd walk out at night, and it'd be like 40 degrees, and it would be like dawn all night. And then in the wintertime, it would be the sun would be like really on the side of the sky, and it'd be kind of sunny, but some days it would just be completely gray all day. um, but it changed. It changed. But
Mhm.
yeah, like the extremes, like the white nights, that was closer to the Arctic Circle, I think.
Okay.
But we got a taste of it, and of course we saw Aurora Borealis, and we saw that all the time. Growing up, I was like, oh, there it is again.
That's
When
crazy.
people talk about it all the time, I was like, wow. It's kind of yeah, I'd love to see that someday. Oh yeah, but
Right. You're like, yeah, I've seen it like a million times, right? I mean, it's one of those things.
yeah, but
Um,
I mean, it was different up there. Being the snow is just something that we were just used to. It was always around. They
mhm.
wouldn't cancel school because of snow. They would just put chains on the buses, and
And you'd
I
go anyway.
remember I remember like seventh grade, I would go to the bus stop and it was all about my hair, you know, I didn't want to mess up my hair. So I didn't wear any hat on my head. I had gel in my hair or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
then my hair would freeze. And then by the time I got on my bus, it started melting. So I'd have like, you know, gel
The
dripping down my
gel dripping
face.
down. Oh,
They want to mess
man.
up my hair, man.
Oh, that's funny. I'm originally from San Diego, Southern
Oh,
California, where we never really saw snow unless you drove to it. But
I love
it's
San
funny.
Diego.
Yeah, it's great. And I just recently moved to Nashville about a little over a year ago. And I have
Okay.
two kids myself. And if it snows like whatsoever, they cancel school here. It's
I know.
like my neighbor from across the streets from Illinois, and he's like, they didn't cancel snow if it was like 2 feet by our house. Like, what is it? Like, they'll cancel it if it's like barely snow. If it's sticking to the ground, they're canceling school.
I just think they don't have the infrastructure, you know, to put out, you know, to have probably, they don't probably have chains on the vehicles and
Oh
sand
no,
and
they
everything.
don't. They don't even have
And,
snow plows for the streets in a lot of the
yeah.
areas. So
So
it's like
that's
they
part of it.
can't leave. It's just funny because majority of the areas in the county I'm in could get to the school, but they can't if there's people out in the midst of some of the suburbs that can't. So like if you're in the same district, they're not going to be like only these three schools are canceled because they can't get access to it, and yours will be. It's like they just cancel everything for the whole
Yeah.
district. But it's just interesting. Like if it's like minimal snow, my neighbor will be like, "Really? Like you're gonna cancel for this?"
I used to, in our yard, we had a pretty big yard, and I would, you know, shovel 2 feet of snow trails around the yard so we could play tag in them. And that's
That's
kind of,
cool.
I love to shovel the driveway. I was so into it. And I don't know, then I was like, oh, I guess that's weird because people don't really feel that way. Sorry, oops.
That's funny. Well, then obviously you have music in your family. Was that
Yeah.
something that you were drawn to early on?
Well, you know, sometimes things are genetic, right? And
Hmm.
without growing up with my father, I didn't really know, um, you know, I didn't know it was genetic. And so I was, you know, I was writing songs, little jingles at least when I was like 5 years old. And I was just, everything was music for me. I was listening to, you know, from Elvis and even some of the Bee Gees and Simon and Garfunkel and that sort of stuff and Bruce Springsteen, and all, you know, pretty much everything that was on the radio I would listen to and respond to. And then I started writing it down, writing my songs down. I was about 11, 12 years old when I was singing in malls in Alaska. And I was cataloging all my songs and recording. I think they were awful, but you know, it was still very creative, and it just felt like something I had to do. And
Uh-huh.
then I learned, it's like, oh, my father is a musician. You know,
Yeah.
my mom didn't really talk about that for a long time.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, this is starting to make sense. And then I just really wanted to play more and perform more. And I was like, really part of me. And there's quite a bit of journey from different genres and stuff. And I didn't play country music till about 2012
Wow.
because I grew up like I grew up in Massachusetts where country wasn't at least in the town that I was in,
Mhm.
Worcester, where my mom's from. It wasn't very popular, though everyone was telling me, "Why don't you play country music? Your name is Houston." I'm like,
Right.
"That's not
It kind
why.
of yeah, it kind of fits.
That's not why you do something. It's you know, your
Right.
name is, you know, you have to feel it. Like country music is about honesty and you've got to be completely honest, I think. Though that's not 100% of what country is today. Anyway, so I didn't do it. And I played rock music and I played it all. You know, I even did like big band music when I was singing it. When I was growing up, singing at old folks' homes, I would sing Sinatra and stuff like that. So I've played a lot of different styles of music. But around 2012, I decided that, you know, I felt like my music career had taken its journey, and I toured on underground music scenes in Europe and all over the States, doing like punk style music and all
Hmm.
of this. And I was like, okay, but you know what? I've never played country music, so and I can't really stomach the stuff that's on country radio. I just really couldn't. And so I said, well, I'll start an outlaw country band. And I did. And, you know, there's some learning curves to it for sure. But then I was like, wow, this is really natural for me. And I really found my voice. And Just really started trying to improve what I was doing. I was writing a ton. So, 4+ albums later now, and I'm still
Hmm.
recording and performing. And I just feel like, man, I wish I did this when I was 12 years old, like everyone told me to do.
Sure.
Um, but
Wow.
here
Well,
I am now.
real quick, back to the mall, playing or singing in the mall. So you were doing your own songs then, or was it just covers at that
Well,
point?
there would be like contests or
Okay.
that sort of thing, and I would one specific at Diamond Mall in Anchorage. I actually wore a cowboy hat and I sang an Elvis song, "Heartbreak Hotel,"
Okay.
and I have video of it. It's awful. I was so stiff, and I did this little speech that my mom wrote for me in the beginning of in 1937. Elvis Aaron Presley was born, and he was, I was talking like this, and he's the greatest entertainer of all time. It's my baby. I was just really stiff, and it was awful. But I did it, and there you go. And my
Well,
my
it's
fingers would bleed from the acoustic guitar that had like these old strings on it that had
oh
been there for
sure.
10 years, and you had to push really hard to make a chord.
Yeah, the action is like 3 inches like between the the fret.
For a 12-year-old, it was deadly.
Was that the first instrument you learned, guitar?
Yeah, guitar.
Okay.
And then I tried to pick up piano when I was younger, and I taught myself some stuff, but it wasn't until really recently, the past 10 years, being around like schools, professional musicians, where I was learning more theory,
Hmm.
and I started putting more chords together. I started reading music, so I can read sheet music pretty okay. I'm always trying to get better at it because
Hmm.
I love the challenge of it. I watch I watch all those YouTube videos on theory that bores everybody else, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is great stuff. Oh, that makes sense now. You
Sure.
know, just trying to put it all together, stuff that I wish I had learned younger, but still enjoying the journey. Maybe I appreciate it more now that
Mhm.
I can see a purpose for it with my writing process and stuff. And a lot of the country songs, oh my gosh, a lot of the country songs are, what is it, 1 5 6 4, like how many country songs are with those chords in that exact progression. um, but the what you try to do for me, what I try to do is, let's say that's the style. I'm going to try to change up the variety of those chords and change it a little bit and still be able to communicate in the same genre. you know
Sure.
but understanding the theory and changing a major chord to a minor chord, or like as a surprise, or something like that, and still communicate the emotion and the story that you're trying to tell is pretty exciting. So the
Hmm.
more you understand the theory, the more you can jet outside of that. And there was a time where I thought, and this was a popular thought from a lot of people at the time, I think, it was like, well, if I learn too much, it'll change my artistry and it won't be as
Right. I've heard
authentic.
that before.
It's like, no, man, it just gives you more tools. It gives you more
Sure.
tools. Yeah, you can get lost in the mechanical, like, there's a lot of people that just play like robots to, the notes, you know,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean you have to do that. You can, understand the theory and go, okay, here's some chords that I can just play to get my emotions out.
Hmm.
You don't even have to have any type of structure,
Hmm.
but if you don't have those tools, how far can you go? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've just heard people say this, like, because you brought it up, but like, yeah, like say, oh, well, if I knew if theory said I shouldn't put this note with this note, then maybe you wouldn't try. Like, just things like that. But in all reality, like, how can it hurt knowing everything?
Right. Yeah. Some people were like, well, these are the rules. Well, those are some rules, but it's a guide. It's not actual rules. You can change the rules.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I totally get like off the cuff, not like the Beatles did that. They didn't know a lot of theory. Like Paul probably knew most of the theory, but a lot of the songs were just like, this is what sounds good. This is what I'm feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go with it. It doesn't matter if
Yeah,
the notes should go together or not.
right. And I get
Mhm.
that, but
It
I
sounds like
like
your
having tools.
it sounds like your mom was pretty supportive of obviously of what you're doing, and even at an early age, she saw something there to be like, yeah, you should join this talent show, and I'm gonna write the speech, and go up there and sing Elvis.
Oh yeah, well, I think in sixth grade is where I really like I had the lead in the school play,
Okay.
And she's like, okay, well, this is what he likes to do. Let's get him some voice lessons. Let's get him, so I started auditioning for commercials. I did some commercials, and I was performing in plays and musicals, which wasn't really my thing, but she was like, well, you showed some talent there. Let's
Mm-hmm.
explore that. I was actually a Nordstrom model for a minute, but
Oh, there you go.
this is all for a very short window of time when I was like 11 to 13, kind of in that area. And then, life happens. We ended up moving from Alaska to Worcester. A lot of things changed with my mom's relationships,
Mm-hmm.
which, threw things. So then I just got into my own thing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped doing that stuff. But yeah, she's always been very supportive, no matter what state uh, her relationships have been in, or the struggles we had just to pay rent, which was a huge struggle. Or I mean, there's a lot of challenges that we had in my house, so we just did our best to get through, and music has always been there. So I would be in my room by myself, write my little cheesy, dark songs about how tough life is, and
Yeah.
being in love or whatever that might be. But
Well, it sounds like they're still, authentic and like you weren't some growing up some rich kid making up songs about the street. You know what I mean? Like there was obviously some truth to what you were writing. It sounds like.
it was 100% authentic, and a lot of it was very dark. But
Uh-huh.
at that time, like my teen years or whatever. But then I also started teaching myself piano and just some chords and stuff. And I would go to school. And I went to a Catholic school, actually, which the
Hmm.
way we paid for it was like we did odd jobs, and I'd be cleaning up puke in between classes, which was not something that helps.
Who was puking? Like there's that many people puking that you had to be like designated puke cleaner up dude?
Well, I would work as the assistant janitor at the school to help pay for school. Like we paint we paint, we do anything to help pay
Hmm.
for school.
Sure.
Because at the public schools, people were getting, knifed and beat up, and there were gangs and that sort of thing. And so my mom was like, well, let's put you in Catholic school.
Hmm.
So, and that's what we did.
Hmm.
But then I would sometimes sneak away and go play the out of tune piano in the auditorium, and I would just be like, I would skip class just to play it, and no one bothered me. This was like, especially my senior year, nobody bothered me. Like people would come in, like, oh, that's just Houston playing the piano. Shouldn't he be in class? I don't know. Probably it's none of my business.
Yeah, that's funny. And then you ended up joining the army, what, right out of high
Right
school?
out of high school, I've always thought I would be in the military.
Hmm.
My original plan when I was 10 years old was to fly, jets for the Marines or whatever, and that didn't happen. So really, I was just trying to get an education, go to college, serve my country, and
Hmm.
I did a lot of music actually in the military. I did played some soldier shows. Not that I was playing music, but my jobs was like petroleum specialist, water purification specialist, master fitness trainer. I excelled in fitness, and I got awards and stuff for that in
Hmm.
the army.
Wow, that's
But,
amazing.
but everyone used to call me Elvis in the army. And they're like, so why are you in the army? Shouldn't you be singing somewhere? I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to pay for school too, because
Hmm.
I grew up broke, and my mom didn't have a college education at the time. And so we're struggling, struggling, struggling. So it's like, well, education is the way out of that. Of course, I chose communications as a major, which pretty
Hey,
broad, not very specific.
yeah, look at me. We have the same major. I went in and I'm like, okay, I'm like, so where can I land without doing any math or science for the remaining 4 years of my life or the next 4 years? Oh, the perfect. Okay, we're gonna go with that one. Sounds good.
And I had the military paid for state schools, and I wasn't aware of any good music programs, and
Hmm.
any type of music was really focused on like classical music. So
Hmm.
I tried that, but it was such a struggle, taking a class on Haydn. I'm
Sure.
like, nah, you know.
Did you get to choose which state you decided to go to school? I mean, I'm not sure how that works. Or
Well,
was
so
did
I
you?
ended up after regular army, I went to National Guard for
Hmm.
Massachusetts, so it was a
Oh,
state
okay,
school for Massachusetts.
cool.
And I don't know, I probably could have changed. There was a time where some friends were going to NYU in New York City, and I did an internship through a summer, and I was hoping to go to NYU, but like the process and like there's still you needed a ton of money. There wasn't,
Hmm.
there was no state funding for NYU.
Right.
Um,
I was
but my
thinking maybe Berkeley, but that's probably just too specific that they wouldn't want to
It's
kick
not a
into
state
that.
school. But
Yeah.
what's funny is that I hire a lot of Berkeley musicians here in Boston to work for me.
Oh, there you go.
And even when I tour out in San Diego, I play Moonshine Beach and Moonshine Flats in both
Oh,
October and November.
okay. Ocean
Uh,
Beach.
so
Is it
I
a?
hire
Yeah,
Berkeley musicians who are based in LA. They'll come down and
that's
last
awesome.
last time I was out there a couple months ago, played Moonshine Beach 2 nights there. We had a great time. Musicians nailed it. We don't rehearse. I'm just like, here's the songs, learn them.
Right, right.
Uh, but when you go to different towns where there aren't a lot of professional musicians, like we did a festival down in North Carolina, I hired a couple musicians, and their style, they're much older guys, and they played with a bunch of legends and whatever, but their
Hmm.
style is different. So like they don't when I say, okay, the count is 3/4, they're like, yeah, I just feel it. I don't know.
We'll
It's
just go. We're gonna wing it.
like, yeah, I'm like, okay, all right. We're gonna
Yeah.
play the click on this, just to make sure that we get the BPMs correct. BPMs? I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah. All
The different.
right.
So when we do flout dates, I'll bring my guitar player, and it's hard to find musicians that don't need to rehearse. You know,
Right. Hmm.
so that's been a challenge, but I think like I'm breaking into the Texas a lot more. Nashville's not a problem.
I was gonna say
Um,
Nashville. Like I heard that they even have their own like real like language here. You just say it's
the
gonna be
numbers,
152 or something. They're like,
yeah,
okay. That's
and
so
and
crazy to me.
that's one thing I've definitely learned and picked up, and I've been really pushing myself to learn that type of theory and that communication with musicians. It's like, okay, this
Hmm.
is, like, we have this one song that everybody ends on the four, and I have
Hmm.
to always look at the sub that's come in. I go, I go one, and you hear them go to the four and go, oh, one, like
Oh yeah, yeah,
at least I
okay.
can give them that.
Yeah, then they understand what you're saying for
Yeah.
sure.
So we played with Whiskey Jam a couple weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and it's not hard to find good musicians in Nashville,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I've
I
been
was gonna say
recording
they're
for
all
them.
over the place.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's great. When I do recording now, I for my past couple projects, I'll work with Bill McDermott in Nashville, and it's all studio musicians. And
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm always, I'm excited to see who he's got from musicians. We had like Tim McGraw's keyboard player and Alabama's drummer last time I was in there, and then like the guys that are playing on, they've been on every hit you've heard on the radio.
Hmm.
That's great. And I never wanted to do the Nashville thing until my manager convinced me a few years ago, because we had some label interest and like we want him to sound more Nashville, whatever. But it was still a great experience. And what I learned is like it's cheaper. They're still true to the song,
Hmm.
at least the people that we worked with. And it, it, if you when you work with a producer that is a hit maker, then they take those songs and they elevate those songs. It's like, well, maybe if we shorten this here and do this there, and oh, let's change the key because your voice sounds better. Little things that professionals really work on. When you're doing it every day, like someone like Bill McDermott, the producer,
Hmm.
he knows what's going to work. He knows what's
Right.
not. You save time, you save money,
Hmm.
and you come out with like this great song that you're proud of, or these great recordings that you're proud of. And for me, my sound is more of like a heartland country.
Hmm.
I would say it's like a Springsteen, Mellencamp, circa '84 is kind of like my vibe, and not just musically, but uh, with the ideas of working hard and taking care of middle America, trying to do the right thing. Like, the middle class is really the backbone of our country, and
Hmm.
that type of philosophy is I bring to my music, and it's true and organic. There's a lot of auto tune and overproduction on. I shouldn't say overproduction. A lot of extra production where you're mixing is different, pop genres in with the music, and that's fine. That's just not who I am. And songs like fancy like that's not something that I relate to,
Hmm.
unfortunately, because it's really popular, but it is what it is.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
when I'm really proud of the music that we're able to make, where it sounds and feels like me, and it
Hmm.
feels honest to me. And even if I don't have uh, a large audience that is into that, at the end of the day, I feel pretty proud of what I've done.
I think you write some really amazing songs, and I mean, coming to Nashville is this is a songwriter's town. I mean, the people that write songs here are songwriters. I mean, there's
Yeah.
obviously like LA is a totally different vibe, and New York, and but when you come here, it's like this is like where people are writing songs.
Yeah, my buddy was like, he told me he's like, uh, relating it to like baseball,
Hmm.
where you go to Nashville, these people are on steroids, like with the writing, it's the
Right.
next level. And I know where I'm at as a writer. I haven't worked the craft as hard and as long as a lot of these amazing writers have. My passion is definitely songwriting, but performance and connecting with an audience. And I've had to bubble gum all my things to try to stay afloat with everything I'm doing.
Hmm.
And I haven't sat in a room, for 10 years writing songs. So I know my skill level is at a certain point, but I think that uh, any person that's trying to be successful in something, they should know their shortcomings and work on them,
Hmm.
but also know where, and how to try to piece together something to elevate what you're doing. And so I like to write with some really great writers. Britton Cameron is one of those writers, and Doug Cahan, Willie Morrison, some of those guys that I've written a bunch of songs with. But I'll also say, hey guys, what other songs do you have? I'd
Mm.
love to see, to record. So I don't mind recording other writers' songs if you know they strike a chord with me. Uh, and that's what I've been doing. And I'm just trying to put the best stuff out and the most honest stuff I can.
Hmm. And the most recent one is called Hangover.
Hangover. So that was written by Willie Morrison and a couple other guys. Um, and the song I put out before that is a song called All We Are Is Memories, which
Yeah.
I co-wrote that one. And it was kind of like very deep and it's kind of sad. So I was like,
Right.
let's change it up. Let's celebrate life a little bit more in a different way and talk about Hangover. And Hangover, I think it was very relative because a lot of people are at home. And so like, well, I'm not going to go out and because COVID or whatever, and
Hmm.
let's stay home and have a couple drinks. Sometimes midweek, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah. And but it's also like, okay, we don't have to go out to have a good time. Let's stay home and let's just work on that hangover.
Sure. With a song like that, you said that that was something that somebody else had written. Do you come to the session and you're like, okay, like, how does that work? You just ask, you just say, okay, you've worked with these writers from before. And you're like, well, what do you have anything that we could we could cut or work on together? And then you just kind of, uh, like, yeah, just kind of explain that to me a little bit.
Sure. So I'll do writing sessions with people, and I've been doing a lot on Zoom and stuff.
Hmm.
Because I'm not living in Nashville, and luckily, because of COVID, a lot of writers who used to be like, "No, we've got to write, we got to be in the same room," that
Hmm.
changed.
Right. They're willing to do it this way. Right.
Yeah, so I'm able to write with people all over the country, all over the world, even if if I hear a song that I like, I'm like, oh, who wrote on that? And maybe I'll reach out to them and write with them. And because of that, we've been doing Zoom writes. So I'll like for Willie Morrison, who recently had a cut with Brothers Osborne, who's probably my favorite modern country act.
Hmm.
Uh, my manager put me in touch, and like we related right away. Like he's a great guy, he's a great writer. I had some ideas, so we come in and we'll write together. And then I'm like, well, what else do you have? So he'll send me. It's like, well, here's some songs that don't have any names on them, or singers on them. And so he sent me some demos, and we're looking for songs, and that Hangover song stood out.
Hmm.
So we decided to record it. They were nice enough to let us record it, and actually, I have the video is going to be coming out soon. Um, uh, and I have Willie Morrison as the lead actor in because he's such a
Oh, wow.
cool guy. I was like, oh, I gotta have him in it, and he did a
Uh-huh.
great job. I can't wait for people to see the video. He did a really great job. It's a funny video. My friend Justin Mayotte, who I know from New England, he's moved down there a few years ago. He's working with everybody, and so he directed the video, and we had some ideas, and he came. It's a fun video. I have some other friends that are in the video as well, but yeah, so
Awesome.
Willie's in that. But that's how, sometimes I don't mind. I know there's a lot of writers that are like, well, we got to write every song that I record, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
if I like a song, I don't mind
Right.
recording it if
Mm-hmm.
it feels like it's part of me, like it's my voice, saying something I want to say, or having a good time or something like that. That it doesn't feel like yeah, I don't know what the word would be, selling out or
Right. Or like a fraud when you're singing. Like, yeah.
God. It's like, nah, this, like the song Freedom, that was written by like Stephen Lee Olsen and I apologize, I forget his name, but like two hit writers.
Mm-hmm.
American Dream was written by Braden Counts and Jason Humer, who my manager, we have the same manager. And I was like, well, that song speaks to me like that, speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have songs like All We Are Is Memories, where I was co-writer on, and that's totally my voice. It's totally my ideas, and they're just better because I
Mm-hmm.
wrote with Britton Cameron. I also wrote a song which hasn't been released called "In My Blood," and that, you know, I wrote 90% of that song, and I was like, I want it to be better. So I
Mm-hmm.
brought it to Britton Cameron, and he was like, well, it's pretty much all here. Changed a couple things, and a couple chords and whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, I wish I could be a great writer like that. And I'm striving to, and I'm trying to improve all the time. Um, but I wrote because Britton came in, and he's just, a veteran writer, and he's been doing it a very, very long time. He is just like the studio musicians. He brought my voice out, and he was true to my story, and was able to make this song that much better. That
Mm-hmm.
extra, 10, 20, 30, 40% better.
Well, yeah. I mean, collaboration is always so beneficial. I mean, you can get somebody else's perspective on the song and, you know, hear some more
Yeah,
ideas and kind of help build it that way. But that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, Houston. I really appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. I have one more question before I let you go. I want to
Sure.
see if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, my advice, I get asked this question every now and then, and I keep coming back to the same thing. Um, Being successful in music, successful meaning like, $1 million houses and that sort of thing, is like winning the lottery multiple times. That's how I feel about it. I've been doing it a long time. I've never been signed to a label, but I've played multiple genres, and for me, trying to be famous isn't the goal, and it's a hard thing, and you get real burnt out real quick if that is your goal. If that is like your main goal. So I would focus on the artistry, the performance, communicating with your audience, finding an audience, and that, I believe, you will find joy and fulfillment as long as you're true to that goal of just being like, I want to be the best me I can be. I'm not competitive, cheering other people on. Yeah, do it. That positivity. Um, if you have that, that will elevate you to some sort of joy and fulfillment in performing and writing, you know, and just try to think long term, not short term. Like, if this is who you are, this is who you want to be, then be the best version of yourself, and that will bring you happiness.